Hi mates, welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial I'll be learning how to draft and cut this two-piece. So if this looks like what you would like to learn, then you need to watch till the end. My name is Veronica Adams AZ. Welcome to Vera Adams YouTube channel. Without wasting time, let's get started. Right here is the pattern paper I'll be using for the sake of this tutorial, and I'm going ahead to mark the length of the blouse, which is 22 inches, and I'm also going ahead to mark 1 inch at the center of the fold. Remember that this paper is on fold, and that 1 inch represents the button allowance. Moving on, I'll go ahead and start taking my measurement right from that point. So right here, I've gone ahead to mark the shoulder measurement, and I'm marking shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, and shoulder to waist. I've gone ahead to roll this out, and I'm taking 1.5 inches above the bust line, and that will represent the chest line. I've also gone ahead to name the other lines: the top length, the waistline, the under bust line, and the bust line. So moving on, right on the chest line, I'm going to go ahead to mark the shoulder measurement, and I'll be connecting it together as you're seeing me doing right here. On this line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope, and right, I'm going to take the neck width as 3.5 inches and connect these points together. So right now, I can move on to the chest line to mark a quarter of the bust measurement, which is 8.5 inches. Right here on the armhole line, I'm going to divide what I have into two and make a mark there and come in by 1/2 inch. Then I'll go ahead to connect these points together, just as you're seeing me doing here. Right on the waistline, I'm going to mark half of the nipple to nipple measurement, which is 3.5. I'm going to mark it from the bust line downwards and connect it together. So then I'll go ahead to take 1/2 inch on both sides on the waistline, and from the bust line I'll come down by 1 inch and then connect it as you are seeing me doing. Once this is done, I can now go ahead to mark a quarter of the waist measurement right on the waistline here, and then add back the 1 inch for the dart, but make sure that you're marking it away from the 1 inch for button allowance. So I'm also going ahead to mark a quarter of the hip measurement right here. I'll then go ahead to connect it right to meet the waistline, and from the waistline I'm going to connect it right to meet the chest line. Then right from the bust line, I'm going to connect it with my free hand to meet that half of the armhole line that we marked earlier. So I'm actually extending it upwards, and I'm marking 1.5 away from the armhole curve. Right from the bust line as well, I'll also go ahead to bring another curved line, and I'm going to measure the difference between the first one and the second one as 1 inch. So 1 inch is fine, and from that point I'm going to extend to meet the bust measurements that we have on the chest line. Moving on, I'm going to decide the depth of the neckline, and I'm marking 6.5 inches and then connect it to the neck width, and we have a V shape. And I'll also go ahead to connect it into the button allowance. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead to mark 19 inches from the shoulder line, and from the dart leg at the bottom right here, I'm going to connect it to meet the 19 inches line in a curvy manner. Note here that I'm using a free hand, but you can also use a curve rule if you want. Maintaining that same 19 inches, I'm going to extend it to make the button allowance, but right away from the button allowance, I'm going to draw like a V-shaped line right from that point to meet the dart leg as well. At this point, we can use this pattern paper to cut out the back piece, just that you would not leave any button allowance, and you have a small round shaped neckline, and that the armhole, it will be the straight one, just as I'm illustrating right here. So, and then you will not have any of this curved shape at the bottom of the dress. So once you're done with that, we can go ahead to determine where the buttons will be. So I'm leaving a space of 1.5 inches between each button, as you can see. So I'll go ahead and represent that using my marker pen. Once we're done with that, we can go ahead to start cutting it out. It is very important that you close up your darts on the pattern paper, because you'll be sewing your dart on your fabric so as to make sure that every point aligns. So if it doesn't, you can go ahead and blend it in. So right here, I'm checking if the bottom shape that I did here aligns, and it does. So if it doesn't for you, you can go ahead and blend it in till it does. At this point, I can go ahead to slash this paper into two so that we have two separate front pieces. One for the button and the other for the buttonhole. So right at this point, we are done with the bodice. Let's move on to the pants, the short pants. So right here is the pattern paper I'll be using for this, and this is the measurement we're going to be using: waist, hip, thigh, hem, and crotch. Crotch is 9 inches. If you don't know how to determine the crotch, you can refer back to a previous video that I did on how to get this. So the waist and the hip measurement is divided into 4, but the thigh and the hem is divided into 2 because we have 2 separate thighs. So of course we have to separate hem, that's the leg of either your shorts or your trouser, as the case may be. I've gone ahead to mark the crotch line, which is 9 inches from the starting point. If you notice, I left about 1.5 inches above the starting point. There's a reason for that, and I'm going ahead to roll that crotch length out. And right from the starting point, I'll also go ahead to measure 7 inches, which represents the hip line, and I'll make a mark right there also. I'll then go ahead to mark a quarter of the hip measurement, which is 9.5 inches, right on the hip line, on the crotch line, and also on the waistline. I'm doing this because the hip is the fullest part of the lower bodies. I'll go ahead and connect these lines together. Right here, I'll go ahead to determine the length of this short, and I want 17 inches at the length. You can decide to do your preferred length. You can decide to go lower or beyond. Right from this point that I'm touching on the waistline, that is where I'll mark my waist measurement. Yes, and then I'll add 1 inch for the dart, and I'll go ahead to connect it into the hip line. Please note that the measurement we are working on right here is a quarter. That's the quarter of the waist measurement. That's waist measurement divided by 4. For the crotch extension, I'll go ahead to mark the thigh measurement divided by 2. The thigh measurement we're working on right here is 22 inches. Divided by 2 will give you 11 inches. So I'll go ahead and mark 11 inches right on the crotch line. I'm going to zoom in so that we can see the exact crotch extension, and we have a little above 2 inches, or we can just say 2 inches approximately. So I'm going to go ahead to curve that inwards. You can actually use your free hand here, it's fine. So once that is done, what I have on the initial crotch line, I'm going to go ahead to divide it. That's the quarter of the hip measurement that we marked at the beginning. I'm going to go ahead to divide it into 2. I'll do that on the crotch line, on the hip line, and also on the waistline, and I'll connect it together. This line is actually important when you're drafting your trouser. It is really not so important here, but anyways, right on that line on the waistline, I'm going to go ahead to take 1/2 inch on both sides, and then I'll come down by 4 inches, then go ahead to connect together. This will serve as the dart. I'll move on and go down by 1/2 inch right here, and then come to this waist side and come up by 1/2 inch. I'll go ahead to extend this upwards and then connect to meet the other 1/2 inch that I went down by on the other side, just as you're seeing it doing right here. Moving on to the hem of this short, I'm going to go ahead to mark what I want on the hem, and what I want on the hem is 20 inches. 20 divided by 2, you have 10 inches, and I'll go ahead and connect it upwards as so. Remember that this is my measurement, so you can go ahead and impute yours depending on your size. So right here, if you notice that the crotch length has reduced because of that half of an inch, so I'm going to go ahead to extend it here at the bottom. So the half of an inch that we took at the top, I'm going to add it here. Then I can go ahead to adjust the lines to match this new crotch extension. For this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead to use 1 inch band. If you don't want a band, you can go ahead to just cut it out, but because I want 1 inch band, I'm going to go ahead to mark 1 inch all across, following the shape that we have already. So, and I'm going ahead to connect this together, so this will serve as the new waistline. So now I can start cutting. Remember, it is not compulsory. You can decide to not use a band. While I was drafting this front, I forgot to add allowance, last the hemming allowance. So that is what I'm going ahead to do here on the fresh paper. So I've actually gone ahead to mark 1 inch for the allowance. But so as to avoid shortage when folding, I've gone ahead to extend that line out just as you are seeing. So you have something like a flay, a small flay at the bottom. So I'm going ahead to cut it out. If we were to maintain that straight line and cut it like that, when you are folding the hem, you notice a sort of shortage there. So that's the essence of the weird looking shape at the bottom. So see how it looks like here. See that it is all covered. I'm sure that some of us have experienced this shortage while folding in. If you have, leave a comment in the comment section. So I've gone ahead to place this front piece on a fresh paper so that we can draft out the back piece. So right at the edge, if you notice, I left space at the top, at the side as well. So I'm going to go ahead to mark 2 inches away from the front piece. And I'll do that right from the top to the bottom of the short. Once that is done, I'll connect it together so that it gives the shape just like the front piece. So I've gone ahead to connect these 2 inches to meet the front piece. Once this is done, at this edge here, I'm going to mark 1.5 inches above. This is to accommodate the butt shape at the back. So if you have a client that has a fuller butt, you can do 2.5 depending on the size of the butt. So anyways, I've gone ahead to mark what I have on the front bodies on the waistline, and we have 8.5 inches. I'm also maintaining the 8.5 inches right on the back piece as well. Please note that I'm measuring this right from that 2 inches that we took on the back. So I can go ahead to connect this right from that point where the 8.5 inches stopped at the back to the 1.5 inches that we did the extension for the back. Moving on, I'm going to go down by 1/2 inch from the crotch of the front bodies, and I'm going to take 1/2 inch all around on the side as you are seeing me doing right here. Once that is done, I'm going to connect this together as so. And then I can go ahead and curve this inwards to meet the waist measurement for the back that we have already marked. So at this point, I'm going ahead to cut the back piece out. If you saw this video to this point, I want to say a big thank you. I hope it was indeed helpful. If this is your first time here, do well to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Do well to share this video with friends and family that are also sewmates. And right here, I'm also going ahead to do the dart for the back as well. Right now, I'll go ahead to bring in the front piece as well. So note that the front will be 2 pieces and the back will also be 2 pieces. At this point, we've come to the end of this tutorial. I hope you found it useful. Comment if you did, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.